Shout out to everybody. This is a backyard mechanic coming at y'all again with another video. And today I'm working on a Toyota Camry with a V6 3.3 liter in it. And what we're doing today, lower control arms. So we're gonna put this lower control on the passenger and the driver's side because they need them. Before any and everything, my first recommendation would be to disconnect the battery. Okay? So remember that's your first step before you do anything, is you want to connect your battery. I'm not doing that. I'm doing lower control arms. I'm not really messing with anything electrical. So I'm not gonna disconnect my battery, but you should disconnect yours. Now we're gonna need various different tools for this job, and I'll call out the tools as we go along and everything that we need. Right now we got a floor jack, and we're about to position the floor jack under the vehicle, and we're gonna raise it, and then we want to support the car on the jack stand. Okay, so I'm gonna jack it up, and I'm gonna place this jack stand under here so we can support the car and go on to the next step. Okay, now we got the wheel off. Yeah. Here's the lower control arm right here at the bottom. Okay, so this is the lower control arm. This is the lower control arm. This is what we got to take off. It detaches from a nut here. Detaches from a nut here. There's two nuts over here, right here, and one here, which is under the motor mount, which may or may not be a little complicated to get to. But we'll see in just a moment. Let me get the tools for it. Oh, before I get the tools, here, and we can see that here. Here, if you can see this here, there's a nut with a Carterpin in it too, to pull out the ball joint. Now this does have like 3 screws, one here, one here, one here, one here, and one here, that you can take out and just separate it from the ball joint. But since my lower control arm got the ball joints in it, we're gonna replace the ball joints and all. So let me get the tools to get started with that. Okay, so what I just discovered is because the bolt on the lower control arm is under this motor mount, is that I'm gonna have to remove this motor mount in order to get this lower control arm loose. So what I'm gonna have to do is start with this bolt here, and then we're gonna have to lift the engine up to come off the motor mount. And then there's 3 bolts under the motor mount that I have to take loose, and then we'll pull the motor mount straight out and move it out the way. That way we can get to those bolts and this bolt under here. This top motor mount bolt, top motor mount nut right here, is a 19 millimeter. So we're gonna use a 19 millimeter and a ratchet. And we're gonna break that loose. Because I don't have a breaker bar, well, I used to have a breaker bar, but because I don't have a breaker bar anymore, we're gonna use the handle off a jack. And we're gonna put that on there. And we're gonna break this nut loose. Like so. There we go. So now we got that nut broken loose. And just take this nut off. Okay. Now we got the nut off, and we want to set the nut somewhere where we'll be sure to find it. Now that we got that off, now we're going to take the screws from the bottom of the motor mount. Loose. Now at the bottom we have a nut here and a nut here in this hole right here and a nut in this hole. Okay, so it's three nuts we got to take off. Then we got to jack the motor up. So this nut that we have right here is 17 millimeter. So you want to take your 17 millimeter and we want to take that loose. We'll break that loose. Okay, so that's one. Okay, so the bolt in this hole here is also a 17 millimeter. So just want to get it started, break it loose. And then we want to go to the third bolt, the third hole, same 17 millimeter. Right there. Go to the third hole right here and use the same 17 millimeter. Broke that loose. So now that all three bolts are loose, all three nuts are loose rather, we're gonna take them off. Now we got the nuts off all three and we put them in a place where we can find them. Now we gotta jack the engine up to get them off the mount to be able to remove the mount out the way to get to the lower control arm. I took the lower mount off. Now we're coming to the top so we can take the top mount off so we can be able to lift it. And there's a nut here and a nut here, and we can just pull the dog bone out the way. The two bolts on the dog bones are 14 millimeter, this bolt and this bolt right here. Okay, now that we got the bolts out, we just want to pull the dog bone out like so. Set it to the side. and out the way. And as you see, that's already done. So now we just want to go under, get a jack, position a jack under the transmission pan with maybe a piece of wood or something. That way we keep from damaging the oil pan. And then we want to jack it up enough to get the motor mount out the way. Okay, so I got the jack. Little block of wood. And we're gonna jack it up to the oil pan. So that'll help keep the oil pan safe. And then we want to jack it up till we get off this motor mount. Okay, so we jacked it up. We got the motor mount loose. We got the motor mount removed out the way. Now, we just have to take out these two bolts, one right here, and there's one on the other side right here. And then on the other side, there's another one. Here are the three bolts, one here, and one here in the back. So 3. We'll take those 3 out, separate the lower control arm from there, which will make it easier. Then we'll come back in, we'll take the ball joint out separately after we get the control arm off. These bolts at the bottom are 17 millimeters, and we're gonna take those off right now. We got the 2 nuts in the bolt out, and they were 17 millimeters to take those loose. So now the lower control arm is disconnected from the ball joint. Now the only thing we have to do is take the 3 bolts loose from up here at the top, which we got one right here. And then the 2 right here, this one, and this one on this side. I don't know if you can see it. We got these 2, and then this little control arm will come off. And then we'll come and take off that bolt right there. If you see it, it has a Carterpin in it. So we're gonna pull out the Carterpin and pull that bolt off, and that'll release the ball joint. And we take the ball joint out, and then we can replace the new lower control arm. This nut right here is 19 millimeter, and you want to take that out. Oh, okay. Now that's a nut on the top, and it's turning, but I'm holding it by hand. But just to let you know, you may want to put a wrench on it for when you loosen it next time, or when you tighten it back up. Okay, so we got that bolt out the way. So now we just need to pull these last two bolts. Okay, so this is one of the bolts, and then there's another one on the other side. These bolts are 22 millimeters. So I'm gonna take my wrench and the jack bar, and break these loose. Okay, that's one broken loose. Now we're going to break the second one loose. Now we got that broken loose. We're gonna remove the rest of the bolts so we can pull the control arm off. So we got both bolts out. Now, just to remove the control arm. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is get a tire tool to wedge it out, but it's loose. And I didn't even need a tire tool, just pulled it out. We got one lower control off on one side already. Then what we're gonna do is put the other one back on, and then we're gonna work on the other side. And look, we got this now. Look how bad it is. See how that moves around? I mean, I can pull that out. So yeah, that is a real bad lower control arm. And we're gonna replace it with a new one. But yeah, it was time for that one to come off. I gotta take the Carterpin out of here and take off this nut to remove the ball joint. So let me get some pliers to do that, and it may be difficult for me to do it on camera since I only got one hand. It's only me filming. So just give me a moment. Okay. So I turned the wheel some. This is the other side of the Carterpin right here. This is what I have to pull out, and I'm bending to pull it out. The kit does come with a new one, so if I tear this one up, it will be okay because I do have a replacement with the new lower control arm. So I'm gonna pull that pin out now. I'm gonna have to set the camera down because I only got one hand. So we got the Carterpin out. Now we just have to take this bolt out and then pop out the ball joint. And this bolt is a 19 millimeter. And something we have to do is unscrew it, and then we gotta get a ball joint remover. Okay, so we loosen the ball joint bolt, and because it's hitting up against the axle, it won't come all the way off. But only thing we have to do now is get the ball joint separator and separate this ball joint from here, and then there'll be no problem. Just okay, so here we have a ball joint separator, and you just slide it in between there and tap on it until it falls loose. Okay, so there we have it. We done broke the ball joint loose. Now we just take the nut off. And the ball joints, good. Well, so now you see it just came off. It's normally not that hard to get to, but this little plate is bent, so it was blocking it for it to come out. But there you have it. That's the ball joint. We got it off. So the only thing left now is to put everything back on, and everything just goes back in reverse of the way you took it out. So here we had an old one and the new one. So you see the two side by side. They're exactly the same. So now we're just gonna put the new one back on, and we're gonna put it on in reverse of how we took it off. We have all the bolts, the control arm. Now the lower control arm has a rubber boot right here. You wanna take the plastic, it was a plastic cover over it, like so. Take that plastic cover and move it out the way. And then we just want to set everything in place and put the bolts in.